Hi, so on this video what we're going to do is apply report regions to Sanger High School agricultural buildings. So I want to go ahead and open up our project. Looks like I accidentally added a duplicate. Sorry. After we open up our project, you could actually see that all of our existing data is entered. I'm going to go ahead and display elevations so you can see all the spot elevations that were implemented into our existing surface. Here you have it. All of the existing data is entered. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and look at our design data. Beautiful. All of our points are applied. Looks like we have a basin out here, our buildings, and we are good to proceed onto our report regions. So now that we are ready to enter report regions, let's go ahead and go to the plans and see what structures need to be applied to our takeoff. So on our plans, I opened up the title sheet or cover sheet. Not sure what they're calling this. It's usually one or the other. We actually have there you go, a site sheet index, I should say. So this shows you everything they will be providing for us, a foundation plan, some details, and let's go ahead and go through them so we could see what regions are in our site plan. So in our enlarged site plan, we could see that we have our two buildings, a chicken hutch, a rabbit hutch, and we also have some sidewalk. They're calling it cast in place concrete. So we could refer to this detail sheet, which is, they're calling it SDX 301, and the detail on there that we need to refer to find the section for the sidewalk is going to be this E14. We're also going to need to look at this cross section. It should be on actually the same sheet, SDX 301, but this detail is actually going to be it's going to be detail A11. So now we could see we have two of our structures on that one specific sheet. Looks like we just need to add or find the section for our building, the two buildings itself. So let's go ahead and check out X301, and again our details that they are referring to are A11 and E14. So on X301, this is A11, this is the E14. A11 shows us that our V gutter section should be a concrete over a pave or AB material, and it looks like they are giving us a section of, let's see, a 6-inch concrete. Let's see, let's zoom in a little bit, kind of hard to see. So yes, a 6-inch section from top of concrete to the bottom of the concrete, plus we also had to add this section which seems to be AB. I'm not seeing a thickness of the AB, so we may need to assume a thickness for the AB itself. Yes, they're not showing us a thickness on this detail, so I'm probably going to assume a 6-inch section. I'm going to refer to our ASM binder and see if that will give us any insight on a good section assumption. So let's move forward. Our sidewalk section looks like it's going to be a 4-inch concrete section. It doesn't look like we have any base underneath it, so we are going to just apply that 4-inch section to our sidewalk. Perfect. Simple enough. And also we need to check out our foundation plan that they provided for us. And let's see. Oh, looks like I just passed it. Our first foundation plan, since there's two buildings, we have to look for the two of them. This one would be the poultry hutch, what they called, the other sheet, they call it a chicken hutch. So it looks like the chicken hutch is going to be a 3.5-inch concrete slab. And let's see what they are going to do for the rabbit hutch. And the foundation for the rabbit hutch is right here is, yep, foundation plan for the rabbit hutch. Again, is a 3.5-inch concrete slab. Perfect. So now that we know that all of our sections, let's go ahead and apply those sections to our takeoff. So let's open up the program. We have it here. We are in our correct surface, and the design surface. We are on the correct layer. So let's go ahead and start data region entry. So we know that our buildings are 3.5-inch concrete structures, so we could start there. So doesn't matter which building we want to start with, they are giving it a building name, so we can actually keep that orientation in our report regions. So let's start with the chicken hutch. The chicken hutch was a 3.5-inch concrete structure, so let's go put that 3.5-inch CC underscore. Again, we want to go per plan, so the plan is calling it a chicken hutch. Otherwise, I would just call it building if it said building. And 3.5 inches comes out to be a 0.29 feet. Once you convert 3.5 inches, you'll see that that equals 0.29 feet. So let's go ahead and apply that report region to our chicken hutch. I'm going to go point to point. And once I finish entering the last point, which was the same as the initial point, I could right click, finish that region, and display our hatch region so that we could see that our report region was applied. Let's go ahead and go 3D so we could see what's going on and what we just did. So if we go in 3D and reference our subgrade versus our design, we will see that we're actually getting a hold down. Let's go ahead and hit this one more time, because for some reason we are not seeing the depth of it on right here. I don't know why it's not showing us, but we could actually visually see this. Let's go back and forth. Hopefully that'll fix it. It doesn't really give us our cut, but it should say a 0.5 cut. It's fine. It might be because there's no perimeters, but let's go ahead and move on to the rabbit hutch. The rabbit hutch, let's go entry mode and actually apply the same structure, except let's change the structure name from chicken hutch to rabbit hutch. And again, it's the same sectional depth. Let's go ahead and apply that point to point, and then final point, right click and save. Now we have our two buildings in. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move on to our sidewalk. Now our sidewalk was a 4-inch section, and go ahead and call that a sidewalk. It is not assumed, so we don't need to add assumed to the region name. And let's go ahead and add that 0.33 section to our whole sidewalk area. So I'm going to go point to point. Again, I have my snap on so that I could snap onto all of my polylines that I entered in my data entry. I do not want to encompass this V gutter, because I believe that V gutter actually had its own section, and that section included AB. So we are actually gonna just get the sidewalk and then get this V gutter into a different region. So it looks like we have all the sidewalk in. Let's go ahead and start the V gutter entry. And we don't necessarily even have to start off with the region name itself. Say you forgot and you accidentally applied a sidewalk region to the V gutter and you wanted to change it to a different region. You don't necessarily have to delete the sidewalk region and re-enter a new V gutter region. What you could actually do is double click the region that you want to change and change it to a different region. So for instance, as you can see with our hatch regions, that we grouped up our sidewalk and our V gutter, and Let me save it one more time. And what we want to do is actually change this from V gutter to, or from sidewalk to V gutter. So let's go ahead and double click that region. There you go. Now that we have that region double clicked, we can see that it was a 4-inch CC sidewalk, but that is actually incorrect. So if we wanted to change it, we could actually just spell out what we want, or just change the name right now. If you remember, our V gutter was a 6-inch CC over some thickness of base rock. We were unable to figure out what the thickness of the base rock is, so I'm going to actually add an assumption to my report region. So let's go ahead and start off with the 6-inch CC, which is known, over a 6-inch AB that is actually assumed. So what I'm going to do is add the word assumed right now rather than the end of the structure, because we are only assuming the thickness of that material. This concrete material is actually known. What we are assuming is this thickness. So rather than putting the assumption at the end, which tells the client that we assume the whole section, we are putting the assumed right after the material section that is assumed, so that the client could see that only this material, the plans failed to give us the thickness of this material, the AB. So now let's go ahead and give it a V gutter name. Oops. So our whole region will be a 6-inch CC over 6-inch AB assumed underscore V gutter. And 6/6 ends up being a 12-inch section, which is just a foot. And now that I changed that section, you could actually see my report region being changed. So it was green because I was grouping it with my sidewalk, but if you go back and forth or just start entering a region as you see me do right now and backspace out of it, you'll see all your hatch regions update. So we have the rabbit hutch, we have the chicken hutch, we have sidewalk that you could see right here, and we also have our new V gutter. So let's go ahead and go to 3D again so we can kind of see our progress. We'll go ahead and land it. As you could tell, if you're referencing subgrade versus design, you're gonna see that there's a couple of different shades going on right here. If I actually updated it, it's giving us the same color shades. It looks like it's within a tint, so every tint it will change the color shade. So these sections are very similar. The shading tells you that the section is actually very, very close to one another. If you remember, this is a 3.5-inch section, these two buildings, and this is a 4-inch section. So it's a little bit darker on the sidewalk side, but if you are looking at the V gutter itself, you would see it's even further down. It's even more red, so it is more of a cut. So this is a deeper section, as you could visually see when you are referencing subgrade versus design. So let's go back to edit mode and see our progress with our report regions. Get rid of elevation. Let's save this. And we also have a couple other regions that we want to add for our basin. Now, every time we have these basins, we typically just drop a bottom region and a sloping region, and if we have any channels like right here or any riprap like we have right here, we would also add those. So let's go ahead and start with let's start from the bottom. So when we have a basin, we typically just call it basin. If it has a number, we'll give it that number per plan, but this one is just the simple, just one basin. So we're going to go ahead and put a basin bottom. And again, this is only going to encompass the bottom of the basin. We do not want to add a sectional depth because there's no material being shown in the plans. So we're going to actually just give it a 0-inch section, I should say. And let's go ahead and enter that report region. Now, as you could tell, there is some riprap in here. So we could turn this, we could F6 and add a point right here and start going around the riprap. but the program actually does okay with putting a region within a region. So what I'm going to do is just encompass the whole basin bottom in this one region, and then I can go back in and in entry mode start a new region. But this region I'm going to capture the riprap that we have right here, and the plans did not give us the thickness of that riprap, so our ASM binder actually gives us an assumption for the depth of the riprap of 12 inches. So I'm going to apply that 12-inch depth. I applied the word assumed at the end of the region because we are not definitely sure. We are just applying previous knowledge from other takeoffs. Let's go ahead and trace out that region. And we are done with the riprap, I should say. So if you double click the riprap, we will see that we added a 12-inch riprap section inside of our basin, and with our hatch regions you could actually visually see that the basin bottom is not encompassing our riprap. Now every time you have a region within a region, it will exclude that basin bottom, which was the initial one, from right here. So instead of having a 0-inch section for this area, what it's going to do is it's going to use this 1 foot section. So let's go ahead and go 3D, and so I could show you guys what just happened. Again, let me rotate this a little bit and hit a different angle so you can see the riprap better. And the riprap in here, you could see that it is indeed getting held down. Now we don't want to hold down the whole basin because there's no details showing us that the basin has material in it. Now if we've seen some bioswale mix or anything like that, some base rock or whatever, we would apply that. But since we do not know if there's material right there, we just put the basin bottom region right there at a 0-inch section and call it good. So now that we have the basin bottom and the riprap in the basin being encompassed, we can go ahead and okay, so now that we have our basin bottom and our riprap region in there, let's go ahead and apply our basin slope. Now there is no material going into our basin slope, but we just like to give our client the square footage of this area in case they do have to seed it or add any other materials to this area. So let's go ahead and just call it a basin slope. Let's take away section because we do not want to add any section to this area, and we could actually even just encompass the entirety of the basin. Now that I have that entered, let's go ahead and stop it, save it. As you can tell, I just encompassed the whole basin, but with the report regions being displayed, you can see that my slope is only showing you the outside of the basin. When I select my basin bottom, it's only showing you the bottom of the basin, excluding the riprap because of the fact that I have a region within this region, and both of these regions are within this region, so you get none of that basin slope region in here. So you see no green in here, and you see no orange or green in this area. So now we actually have a channel right here that I'm not 100% sure what the section is, so let's go ahead and apply an assume section. Now typically these channels are about 4 inches of concrete, so I'm going to give it a 4-inch section assumed and call it channel. And again, this section is assumed, so I'm going to go ahead and add the word assumed to the end of the section or the region name and give it the depth of 0.33 feet and go ahead and apply that to this general area. Now notice how I don't have a data line for this area. Since they failed to give us any data over here, we did not enter that data. So I am just going to freehand it without having to select any design data. I just hit a F6 right here, selected that point and went down. So now you could see that I only encompassed that channel. So let's go ahead and view what we did in 3D. And in 3D you can see that there is a 12-inch section being held down, there is a lighter section right here being applied to the channel, and then we go back to the 6" over 6" V gutter. So let's go back and look at all of our report regions. And now that we have all of our report regions in, let's go ahead and just fill in the blanks with some landscape areas. Now that we have all of our structures applied, we could just add a total landscape area. Landscape. You do not want to add a section, just give it a 0" section and go point to point. Again, we could double click. Do not bypass this start point, so I want to click the previous point, manually bypass the start point, double click, and that should get me all the way around to the beginning of the report region. So now if we look at this region by itself, we could do a view hide all but, and we could see if there's any missing report region. Again, I have my landscape region being selected, so what I'm going to do is make sure that there's no structures that need to be added that are being shown right now with this red hatching. If I see any buildings, any sidewalk, pavement, anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and add those regions. But it looks like we actually have everything covered, so let's go ahead and save that and call it a day. Thank you.